Alright guys, TouchCrab back again today. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday so far. Today we're going to talk about the round 7 meta once again. That, well, it might have been a meta for a little bit. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case anymore, at least in the challenger scene. But who knows, maybe Parasite will manage to hang on to this round 7 through champs, as he says he will in fact be doing. Kind of preempted this whole discussion yesterday when we talked about Parasite. We talked about Envoy starting to use it in the professional scene. But as the season ramps up towards the post-season things, you know, with champs, LCQ going on this weekend, playoffs of course coming up in a couple of weekends time, a lot of the challengers guys that have had to play against Parasite using the round 7 aren't particularly happy with it. And then of course we've got some usual suspects chiming in on the matter. Intrigued to hear your thoughts down below as always. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new. Thank you for 24,000 subscribers, which we just hit yesterday, so that's just fantastic. Looking for 25k for champs. I believe that can certainly be on the horizon. A few things as well based on this AGN event going on yesterday. This is a pretty funny image, absolutely no land in the background. These masks of course being worn completely correctly, and then you've got this AGN event, so in order to preserve the competitive integrity of the online tournament, we've decided to postpone the second day of action. So yeah, if you guys didn't see that video yesterday, pretty remarkable situation that's going on. And then you also get this, thanks to Carl for pointing this out to me, but well, the CoD tournament, the CoD event that they were playing at doesn't even have a valid business license. So far from ideal on many fronts, I would argue. This is what happened then from Parasite and the rest of the situation. So a few days ago we talked about well, I put that montage up in yesterday's video of all the RAM clips that Parasite was coming out with. He tweeted this a few days ago: I got some of these challengers shook. Then Gunjar replies they're not ready for the double RAM. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case anymore though. So then we get this. Fame comes out with RAM is half GA'd right now. Not sure what's going on. Haggy is 1v65ing in the group chat to keep it. So another classic situation, right, where pretty much Haggy, Parasite, is the only player in the entire league or in the entire challenger side. And of course Envoy started using it, and we'll have a look in a second that it looks like maybe he will be using it on the Huntsman, which of course begs the question, right, exactly what's going on with the meta in the professional side of things, with champs just around the horizon, teams probably trying to innovate, get a leg up, get an advantage over other teams, potentially using new weapons that may be in the meta, like a 2MP5, 1 RAM, 2M4 meta, could be pretty good. But yeah, Parasite's pretty much the only player to use it this entire season, started using it several weeks ago now, and it looks like in the amateur side, no one else is using it, and therefore no one else wants it in the game, right? If no one else is good with the RAM, and it does take some getting used to. I was playing it with it last night in the CDL playlist, shout out to the boys I was playing against. It definitely does take some getting used to, like the long range recoil and this kind of stuff. So I imagine a lot of the players that don't want to play against Haggy using it are because they don't have the practice time with the gun, and they're, you know, not as good as Haggy is with it, because he's had a good practice, you know, using the recoil and getting the hang of exactly how the weapon feels and how long the reload speed is and all this kind of stuff that goes into being a great player with a particular weapon. The other players aren't using it, therefore it's like, okay, well, let's just disadvantage Haggy because he won the most recent event on his 5-star team by getting it out the game. Just a classic situation. And of course, well, Parasite wants to hang on to it because there's no official way the GAs are done, right? There's no official GA discussion that the CDL decides, okay, everyone voted against or everyone voted for, therefore it's GA'd. The pro players and, well, the amateur players in this case, given it hasn't really reached the pro scene yet, basically decide that on their own. So Haggy's absolutely frying 1v65 with the RAM in hand, and then he comes out with this: I am using the RAM at champs, whatever these moronic challengers say, been using it for the last month, use whatever you want versus me if you feel some type of way, but hold my sack. So yeah, thanks to the boys for pointing this out to me as well. So Parasite's just like, yeah, no way, this is not happening, I'm using it regardless. You guys just crap with the weapon because you never use it, and I'm the one who's started to bring it into the meta, and there's only one of them on the map, right? Everyone's still using M4s and MP5s. It's not like the RAM is all of a sudden a dominant weapon and we're seeing all of them on the map. That's typically why I say that GAs can be good in some instance, because back in the World War II days we had the ITRA, like the 4-round burst weapon, added into the game, and you look from that perspective and you're like, okay, well, that gun was so good that a lot of people were saying that there was just 8 of them on the map when they were playing Search and Destroy, and at that point it's like, well, it's kind of ruining the meta, at least from a player's perspective to watch and to play as well, given that everyone's just using the same gun. If that was the case with the RAM, then maybe you could make the argument, but the fact that there's literally one player in the entire challenger season, and now maybe one player in Envoy in the professional scene that's actually using it, you can't really argue that it's too strong, right, with everyone else running around with MP5s and M4s on the map at any time. So honestly, once again, a classic situation. So then we get this follow-up from Zinx. This is the same guy who first said if a GA gets outvoted, don't be weird and just agree. Haggy is being outvoted 11-1 in the chat right now and refuses to give the gun up. We agreed to use pro GAs, that's why the knife came back. Now you want to switch out again because none of you are better than me at something. Yeah, because that's the reasoning, Chris, etc, etc, etc. And yeah, Parasite comes back to this one. We GA'd the org because the pros did, you imbecile. You know, he's talking about something he's ignorant to. I've said to him and the whole team that the entire reason why the org was GA'd is because of the pros. We went with the pros GAs, which is why it's still GA'd being the org. I'm calling him an imbecile because he refuses to listen to logic. The pros saw us GA the org first and followed. What are you saying? Pros confirm that we are literally why you GA'd. Our opinion means literally nothing. That is the most ignorant thing in the world. So quite the back and forth here on the Twitter sphere, as we are accustomed to in the Call of Duty community. We then get this from Parasite. The RAM is what the K-Bar, Maddox, Bar, etc. are to their respective games. If there were 3 or 4 RAMs on a team dominating the meta, which would have been considered abusive, then I'd have zero issue getting rid of it and putting it in the GA category. But so far, all I've seen is one person per team using it as their second AR player. And, you know, as we said, Parasite's using it. Maybe now other teams are starting to implement it into the game. But as he's saying, like, pretty much only the second AR is using it on any map. We'll talk about the Envoy situation, exactly what that might look like for the Huntsman in just a second here. But yeah, Parasite's certainly not happy getting this out of the game and just completely removing it from the scene. And, you know, to be honest, I certainly agree, right? The fact that there's only one of them on the map at any time, the M4 and the MP5 are still pretty much the dominant weapons, but the RAM definitely has its situations. It's certainly not as good like at super long range that the M4 is. It kind of does struggle like across the map engagements where the M4 can absolutely dominate, but up close, kind of like close medium range, medium-ish range where the MP5 starts to get a little bit difficult to control and the M4 isn't super dominant yet, well, that's where the RAM dominates, right? And on certain maps, Parasite and co have definitely used it to good effect, and the fact that it's not dominating the meta, I mean, the fact that the Maddox, K-Bar and Bar, this is from Infinite Warfare, of course, Maddox from Black Ops 4, Bar from World War II, the fact that these guns dominated the game at a certain point, and the fact that they were still allowed in the game is, you know, it's difficult to say that the RAM should be banned on just the case of this, in my opinion. And then Parasite comes out with this gif, so I actually love this. I always find these entertaining. When I needed Gujar and Exotic, so his teammates, they were literally nowhere to be found. So he's talking about this 1v, well, 11-1 situation at the Challenger side, 1 versus 65ing, as Zinc said, and, well, Gujar says, we know that is cap, and, well, this is the discussion we had right now. We looked at this tweet earlier, and then he says, Haggy in the chat right now, and posts up this image of, well, Parasite doing his best to hold on to, well, a difficult effect, right? So, who knows what'll happen. Then, of course, it wouldn't be a day of Call of Duty drama without Clayster chiming in with a tweet. Love to hear the challengers up in arms about the BS GA system. Once again, no idea how to fix it, but GA committees are getting so dumb. If the round was so good, why don't you see 3 of them on the map? People get zapped once and go, oh my god, GA, it's OP, and don't even use it. Same thing happened with the org. Saw 1 or 2 on the map, and people started freaking out. We saw that, you know, earlier this month, or earlier in July at least, with the FaZe clan team using it, the Atlanta FaZe. Then everyone decided to GA it because Priest got that, or actually I think it was Sensor, right? That's what people were talking about. Sensor got that clip on Ramazza where he got like a 4-piece, and everyone was like, damn, the org is must be 2 GA, it must be like GA, right? Because Sensor's getting kills with it, and therefore they G it from the game. Atlanta FaZe are like, damn, we want to use it anyway because we've been practicing with it, and eventually they backtrack because they risk getting blacklisted in scrims and future situations, and camaraderie between the professional teams not being so good. And well, that's what Clayster is implying here. Like, there hasn't been 3 to 4 MP5s every map for months. Tired of it, let's just play CoD and get good or get off the game. So I totally agree with what Clayster's saying in this one, to be honest. And then Pristini says, I am the main sub player again. Even Dylan gets to run around with an AR on some maps. So Dylan, of course, being Envoy. And this is an interesting discussion, certainly around Pristini and the Chicago Huntsmen, because we kind of look like, well, it looked like to me, the Huntsmen were actually a pretty damn good team. When Arcides and Former were the 2 ARs, then we had Scump and an Envoy on the SMGs, and Pristini was kind of the 3rd sub on some maps, but then when the meta was in place and he was bringing out the 3rd M4, that actually worked out really well for them. And having Pristini in that kind of flex role seemed to work out pretty well for the Huntsmen when they first got in their groove with Pristini back in the squad and this new meta started to come into play. However, maybe that's not what they're looking for now, because Envoy plays a slightly different role, and maybe they feel like Envoy with the RAM in hands might be better for their team composition. That puts then Pristini back on the main sub with Scump just behind him, and then Envoy in that kind of flex RAM position, and then Arcides and then Formal, right? So definitely you've got some questions here about exactly how this is going to change up their squad. But if this is going to mean that Huntsmen are going to innovate in this new meta, definitely something which you could consider doing for the Huntsmen, right? Because as we've seen in the last few events, they haven't really been super competitive. Certainly still a top 4 team, but you know, they're 4th seed in the league. They don't have the most, they don't have the easiest run by any means if they want to make it all the way through to the championship grand final. So maybe they do need something to switch up, change the role slightly, change up, and try and introduce a new gun to the meta, which maybe the other teams aren't using. And by the time it gets to champs, maybe the pros haven't realized that the RAM is so good yet, to the point where it's not GA'd. But then again, we're a few weekends away. So I imagine if Huntsman and co start using these in scrims, it may spread, and we may have a GA in the professional scene as well, as we are discussing it in the amateur scene right now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new. As always, I'd intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.